march towards excellence in higher education. What can be done? How should we improve our standards? What needs to be done?
We can be a developed country by 2030.
An expenditure is 3,73,000 crores of rupees.
Right from the day of our independence to the present date, I am sorry to tell that we have failed in our plan.
Education is considered to be any country's immediate and distinctly significant factor that contributes to the development of our nation. And therefore, globally, all countries have given great importance to education in the process of development. It is considered to be very significant to ensure that the country grows over a period of time. Within education, especially the higher education, which consists of the degree programs, the postgraduate programs, including the PhD, diploma, and postdoctoral programs, are also considered to be very significant in ensuring that the quality of the population of a country is improved over a period of time. Now, scanning the higher education scenario in India, now we have nearly 466 universities, we have more than 140 lakh students, and then thousands of colleges, and at the same time there are so many questions being raised about the adequacy of the education, higher education being provided in the country. Now, even after more than 6 decades of planned economic development in the country, it is unfortunate that hardly 13% of the population of the age group of 18 to 23 is going for higher education today. This technically we call it the gross enrollment ratio. Now, if the gross enrollment ratio for India is just 13%, if you see the same thing for the global average is around 23%. And even in countries like China, it is around 20%. In USA, it is around 80% plus. In Canada also it is the same thing. In UK, it is around 55%. And therefore, it is essential that if you are dreaming of a developed India, we need invest in higher education. We need take higher education very seriously, and we need to discuss the various issues concerning the higher education in the country. Now, if you look into the issues concerning the higher education today, we have the issue of access. We could not provide higher education to all those who are in need of. We have the issue of inclusion. That is, we could not reach out to all the segments of the society as far as higher education is concerned. And there are also issues of excellence in the field of higher education. Plus, we are talking of lot of reforms in the area of higher education today, thanks to education becoming one of the 12 agreements under GATS of WTO. Now we are also talking about the opening up of the higher education system in India. In the light of all these things, and considering the fact that higher education is very, very important in attaining our dream of seeing the developed India within a few years, we have a very interesting panel of experts discussing the issue on this area. We have with us Dr. Syed Akil Ahmed, who is the Vice Chancellor of Yenapur University, who would be discussing about throwing light on these aspects. At the same time, we have Sri Anantha Krishna, one of the very senior bankers. Possibly he can throw light on how the industry and academia should work together in the nation building. And we also have another senior professor and vice chancellor of the NITE University, who would be contributing their ideas in this particular field. Let me just first start with Professor Syed Akil Ahmed. Are you really happy with the way the higher education sector is moving in India, especially from the point of view of the expansion of the higher education sector in the recent times?
First of all, I would like to just say that nobody is happy in India as far as the achievements are concerned. The second, when we say that there is an expansion, that has been belied with the facts and figures. If you look at the population of India, which is more than 1 billion, and the total number of the institutes, universities and institutes of excellence which are available, they are looking to be very minuscule when compared to the small countries like even Japan. Japan, a small country, has 4,000 universities. America has 3,856 universities. And again, if you just take into consideration some of the colleges there who can award the degrees, they have more than 8,000 universities. In this scenario, for a 1 billion population, 466 university, if you say that there is a rapid expansion, I think so it is a myth. It is a wrong information that has been fed to the public. We require large number of the institutes, but not at the cost of the quality. It is also required to look into the development of India over the past 60 years. India started with an agriculture-driven economy in just post-independence period, and partly backed up with an technology or industrial-driven economy in the last quarter of the 20th century, and slowly it is coming into the arena of what you call it as a knowledge-driven economy. In this aspect, if you take into consideration, there is a need to transform our human resources to human capital, and human capital to the intellectual capital, and this intellectual capital to the knowledge asset, and from the knowledge asset we should transform into technology asset, and this technology asset to the economic asset, and ultimately is the economy of a country, which is important to decide whether a country is a developed country or an underdeveloped country. Today India stands at the crossroads. Unfortunately, it is neither we are a developed country nor we are a underdeveloped country. In this scenario, the challenges will be many. If you take into consideration the various aspects, or you will see that as an underdeveloped country which have got certain privileges and which also get certain patronage from the developed countries, we will not be getting it, nor we are receiving it also. Because we are competing with the developed country, the various resources that we use to get it in terms of the intellectual input has been curtailed. But conversely, that has given an impetus for us to build up our indigenous technology, which we have done it over the years. But at the same time, we will have to see how the young India, when I say young India, the whole world is aging, except India, wherein you will see within about a decade or decade and a half, the 50% of the population will be below 35 years, which the demographers call it as a demographic bonus. And that becomes an asset provided we make use of this youth and channelize their talents to transform that human resources to human capital to intellectual capital, so that we will have to run the economy on the knowledge. How to go about? To go about, we require a large number of universities, large number of institutes of excellence, and large number of the collaboration, partnership programs, which includes the training programs and all. But at the same time, we will also have to look at the gross enrollment ratio, which is at present stands at 12.4%. We want to just enhance it to a larger extent, and which is very low when compared to the world average of 23%, as rightly pointed by you, and which is very much low when compared to the average of the developed countries of 55%. How to just go about? We require a lot of the universities have to be built up. How to build up the universities? If you want to build up the universities, the government do not have so much of the economic backup to build up the brick and mortar model. So at this scenario, we need to go for a PPP model, that is a public-private partnership model. You will see that the concept of the social equality has been taken care of. But last quarter of the 20th century, we saw the new concept coming in called the equity concept. When we talk of equity, we talk of the justice. But it's my personal opinion, neither the social equality or the social equity is just sufficient in the Indian scenario. What I want is social equality shall be there, equity shall be there, but at the same time I want it should be distributive equity. When you are talking of a distributive equity, the person who has already enjoyed certain privileges, they will have to see that the next generation of that particular community should also enjoy. And this I call it as a distributive equity, which is becoming very important in the present day scenario. Unless we do not talk of that distributive equity, we cannot just think of making India a developed country. We cannot just see that there is an equitable distribution of the money or the economic power that is available with our country, despite the fact we have a very good GDP, with all said and done, we require to see that there should be an equilibrium between the haves and have-nots, and unless and until the redistribution of the wealth in terms of the not only the social values but at the same time the human values, the economic values, and every values have to be distributed, then only we can think of in India a great country. Besides, one aspect we'll have to take into consideration, that if at all if you are talking of an higher education, if you are going to go for a mushroom growth of the universities or institutions, it shall not be at the cost of the quality. Quality should be the cornerstone for all the building up of the institutes. How to build up of the the quality institutes, we can discuss it little further when I can hear from the other of my panel members.
But where we failed was right from instead of going from the top to the bottom, I feel we have failed from going from bottom to the top.
I feel that it is government's duty, industry will certainly help.
To control the industries, not to give more, rather not to give less.
You take the top level now. I am sorry to say, the corruption level is so much. I emphasize here, I am bold enough to say corruption level at there is no table unless there is a paperweight on your paper, it cannot move to the next table.
That's quite interesting. You have been talking of the expansion of the higher education sector and the responsibilities of various sectors within. You also touched upon the fact that the industry has a major role to play here and the private sector has an important role to play here. The industry-academia interaction and a kind of synergy that we can get through such an interaction is quite significant, and we should be making use of that. With us we have a very senior banker. Possibly he can tell us what is the expectation of the industry from the academia and how well the issues of access, inclusion and excellence can be strengthened by the industry.
Thank you, Dr. Modita, but let me first explain that between two stalwarts of education, two vice chancellors of universities, Dr. Shantaram Shetty on my right side and Dr. Syed Akhil Ahmad on the left-hand side, it becomes really difficult for me to talk about education. One issue which I feel here is the statistics which we quote. 13% of our people are having access to higher education. Now, in terms of comparison with other countries, 13% may be a low figure. But in absolute terms, since our population is too high, too huge, 13% is a good number. Absolute terms, it may be much bigger than what America today produces here, what Australia or any other country today produces. Now, after having seen this 13% or even improving it to 15%, what facilities we have given to them in the nature of employment or to further nurture their research or other activities. Now, industry today looks to these higher education people as well as even graduates for their contribution in the practical aspect of day-to-day life and business. And the industry today in India, I find, is not spending much on research. In any other country, about 30 to 33% of the income of an industry goes for research, for developing their product and the people concerned. Here, not even 5% of their income goes to the research. Perhaps industries here should look to providing some money, deploying some money in research and development of the human capital. This is one aspect. After having said this, now what do the industry look to from the higher education students coming out of the college or universities? Industries or any, for that matter, any kind of financial, manufacturing, etc. We look to higher production, better service. Now, whether they are capable of meeting these requirements of the industry as such. Today, industry can be divided into major 3-4 categories. The manufacturing sector, the infrastructure, the service sector, and also technology, information technology. Now, in these areas, what do the expectation of the people? They require the candidates they select deliver the goods, and more than a theoretical issue, it should be a practical issue, and they should be able to give customer satisfaction, give the product which the customer wants. Now, in that matter, I feel the Indian universities, maybe with the exception of the Institute of Management, the earlier Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, etc., other institutes have not come up to the expected level. And they should come up to that expected level. And now for the students, the accessibility to these universities. The one thing, there should be enough number of universities, colleges. Another is there should be enough room in those colleges. Third is the student should have the financial capacity, ability to meet the expenses and to study there. Now, as a banker, I can come in the last phase. The financial assistance banker can provide, but to what extent? Today the fees are really skyrocketing. To that extent, bank finance may be a bit difficult because we always look to the repayment. And how they can repay, this is another issue to be looked into in the higher education. Now, with the existing facilities, even with the earlier finance minister all telling that education loan should be given, etc., that 7.5 lakhs of rupees, 10 lakhs of rupees loan, whether it is sufficient, it would suffice to meet the expense. So therefore it is necessary for the educational institutions to make their courses available at cheaper rates. And those institutes, to make their courses available at cheaper rates, the industry should provide them their necessary financial strength as well as the other facilities. So this is the blending of education institutions and the industry. This is where I say research, industry spending on research should be more in our country, and then certainly education, higher education will reach more number of people.
So that's about speaking about the responsibility of the industry towards higher education. There is also a feeling that in some of the sectors, as far as the higher education is concerned, the supply is more. But then, even when we talk of the 13% gross enrollment ratio, there are people arguing that there are so many graduates, there are so many postgraduates, where is the opportunity and things like that. Say, for instance, in the medical field itself, I was just reading a report the other day, which says that as we enter the new millennium, our India nuzzles today almost 16% of the world's population. 16% of the world's population. And we have the incidence of medical cases, it is said it is around 20%. But we have only 8% of the doctors in the world. So now, do we really feel that the supply of the right talent required for managing Indian economy, it could be the field of medical sciences, or it could be engineering, or any other field. Now, do you really feel that there is shortage and we need to take these kind of reports very seriously? May I ask Dr. Shantaram Shetty to...
Yeah, it's a very challenging question. I always emphasize that where we have failed in our country is planning. It is very well said that planning without action is a futile exercise. And action without plan will lead to complete failure of the system. It's only when you plan and execute your plan to perfection you reach your goals. Right from the day of our independence to the present date, I am sorry to tell that we have failed in our plan and failed in our execution. Even if you have planned, we have beautiful plans but it has never executed. I will just give you an example of a family planning. Family planning, we were the first country in the world under Jawaharlal Nehru to bring about family planning as a rule of law. But today we are a billion strong. We are going to even surpass China in 2030, and that shows our failure that our planning. So is in our education system. So is in our any branch of industry or anything. We just execute it without a proper plan. As it is rightly said, government, I feel, has no role to play in even running banks, running hotels, even running educational system. They will have to govern. The example, the classical definition of government is govern. They should not be running buses. You take any example where the government has put its field in, they have failed miserably. We have lost. In any sector of industry, any sector of education, any sector of management, they have failed. So you give it to a private sector and govern it properly, collect the taxes and do your job. So you rightly said, have we produced enough of doctors, enough of engineers, enough of whatever it is. For me, higher education is not just learning ABCD. Higher education is not learning the basics of medicine or higher education of orthopedics. Higher education is with the knowledge which he acclaims to get into skill and into wisdom. Unless we make our people wise, we reach nowhere. All the developed countries, they have gone into higher education with the love of a particular person. Here many of our higher education people become a doctor or an engineer or a chartered accountant or a lawyer because his father or mother wants him to be that. He will be a failure in society. He does not give back what the society or what the college, what the government has given to him, because his only mode will be to earn his livelihood. It is true, many of our educational system failed because our economy failed. The first thing a person looks into is how hungry he is and how to feed himself, how to dress himself, how to go about in a car, how to have his houses. But that all the Western society overcame that much earlier. Once a man is satisfied in his basic needs, then he looks into a higher education. So our higher education should aim at giving him the basic facilities which is required, which our economists, our bankers like Andhra Krishna, our politicians should give to the general people at large. Then he will look into higher sides. A mind does not work with a hungry stomach. So we will have to see that we plan ourselves well, then execute our plans to perfection to bring about higher education.
Will Harvard in Hassan or in other place will make a big difference? Will it be in a position to create the same kind of education delivery process that we all would be proud of?
I see our youngsters going into mediocre universities in Australia and learning. What are they learning? And finally their destination is to settle down in Australia. So that is not education.
When the world came into existence, God regulates us with the concept of the heaven and hell.
You touched upon a very important subject of the issue of governance in higher education. That's pretty relevant, and even at the policy level it is being today talked about. And as a product of that, you have the National Council for Higher Education and Research being formed. And lot of changes, sweeping changes are going to take place in the field of higher education. And you all have been following up these developments. So obviously I am tempted to ask you a question. How relevant these changes that are being brought in are today, and how happy you are with the kind of changes that are being, introduced today at the national level by the government of India. Maybe
Let the
I'll be
gov-
happy if each one can respond.
Yeah, you go ahead, I will.
Change is inevitable. Society is dynamic and there shall be a change. But if change brings anxiety, then it will be a failure. If change brings an excitement, then we are successful. Today, in India, higher education, and in the Indian scenario, the higher education has taken a total different perspective. The perspective rightly pointed out by my friend, we have to concentrate on building up of our knowledge asset, as I was mentioning. Knowledge asset, what he is talking about, the research. We have to go beyond research. So now there is a shifting paradigms, whether we will have to go for research for innovation or research on innovation. In this scenario, we will have to just define what is an innovation, because the President of India has declared this decade as a decade of innovation. The 3M company have defined innovation in a very simple algebraic equation. Innovation is creativity plus action. When we are talking of a creativity, we are talking of a mental process. And mental process have to be supplemented with an action. That means to say, you have to transform your creativity in terms of a action to the products, and products to the assets, and assets to the economic assets. This is the challenge that we have to do it. Again, I wish to take what my panelist was mentioning, that there shall be a financial backup for an higher education, so that the students who are opting to go beyond graduation and post-graduation, opting their research as their career, which is absolutely important to make our country a developed country. That is only possible provided we will think of bringing a sort of entrepreneurship among the researchers. The 3M company, again, the people, they have coined a new word called inventorpreneur. That means you are not only inventing a new thing, but you are trying to just bring an entrepreneurship and transforming that entrepreneurship to an enterprise. That means to say, research is from the laboratory to the products, and products to the society. This is the greatest challenge that we are posing. In this scenario, how to just go about is to see that we are trying to just have a partnership between an industry and an institution. Conceptually, what is an institution? Conceptually, an institution is nothing but where you are producing an invisible force called knowledge. And then what is an industry? Conceptually, an industry is they make use of that invisible force and bring it to the visible force of what you call it as a skill. If we are able to make a blend between the knowledge and the skill, we are able to compete with the developed countries. And that is where I call that India is not lagging behind with any of the developing countries now, but with the available talent, available potential which we have, and the human resources that are available, the youth power, all these variables, if you try to put in, transform into an intellectual asset, it is possible that we can just be a developed country by 2030. If you just take a simple world report, they consider that purchase power parity of India will be equal to the United States of America by 2050, but at that time China will be 147. But I am sure if we are able to just pool up all our resources and talents, and if given any other occasion wherein I can put up the data, we can be a developed country by 2030. So this is, this one. If we want to achieve this, we need to have the higher education made almost obligatory on the part of every sane citizen. See that he will just transform his talent into action, action into an intellectual pool, and intellectual pool to a knowledge asset.
Wonderful. You have been talking of creating an academic ecosystem, wherein a very healthy academic ecosystem, wherein there is a very strong, relationship developed between the industry and the academia. Well, when you are talking of the innovation, in a resource-starved country like India, obviously the government may not be in a position to fund all the research activities in the universities and so on. So that's where possibly the industry, which is also a consumer of the products of the universities, should pitch in. I think the response from Mr. Ananthakrishna would be quite relevant here at this.
I will not agree with that. The government cannot fund these research activities. Government has enough resources, and the government is wasting those resources, to say it bluntly. If you see the budget of 2010-11, the plan expenditure is 3,73,000 crores of rupees, and the non-plan expenditure is 7,35,000 crores of rupees. Double the plan
The design
expenditure.
itself will have a
Yeah,
problem.
the non-plan expenditure. Where does this non-plan expenditure go? Waste of money. To just meet the top-heavy management bureaucracy. What an amount of waste we are making in this non-plan expenditure, in disbursing salaries where such expenditure can be avoided. Now, my point here is that the government should plan its budget well and see that the plan expenditure goes up, the non-plan expenditure comes down, and the plan expenditure is spent on research and infrastructure. These are the two immediate requirement, and research is nothing but the education institutions, to build these education institutions. I feel that it is government's duty. Industry will certainly help, will come to the rescue, and a particular industry may look to the product which it requires. Whereas the government has the responsibility, it's a social responsibility, is to see that the people coming out of the universities meet the requirement of the industry in general. To that extent, the government should work. And I feel Indian government is rich enough to do this, provided they plan well. I take the word from Dr. Shantaram Shetty. Planning and implementation, these are the two very important things. And I am sorry to say that in every field in these 60 years of Republic India, maybe with the exception of the first 13 years when Pandit Nehru was the Prime Minister, after that we never understood the P of the planning.
I am quite sure, because all the panelists here are not just action leaders, but you are also thought leaders. Enough inputs have been given. I am quite sure that with this, you will be in a position to empower India through education. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.